From the heart of Bradford, this is BCB 106.6.
Yes, so we've got a bit of a green theme to 5 o'clock till 5:30 this afternoon on Drive, and you're listening to John and Kathy. We're actually on air until 6 o'clock this afternoon. So yeah, good to hear what Extinction Rebellion have been up to locally in Bradford. But today's, yesterday was quite significant in terms of the whole kind of climate change debate, because the government officially announced a climate emergency. But today is also significant because the Committee on Climate Change have issued their, I suppose, long-awaited report. And this is something which I believe all the UK governments have been asking. So today it hits the headlines, and I'm very pleased to say that we can speak to Duncan McCombie, who's the Chief Executive of Yes Energy Solutions, and previously he was the Director of Operations at the Energy Saving Trust, about this report. Good afternoon to you, Duncan.
Good afternoon, John.
Thanks for joining us. So these are significant days, aren't they? We've got kind of Brexit has been pushed a little bit to the side in terms of the political agenda, and I suppose I mean that in a good way. And last week and this week, all kinds of things happening. And today, this report has come out. Could you kind of give us the headlines to this report, Duncan?
Yeah, sure. And I think, as you said, Brexit pushed to the side. Brexit is something which will happen over the next 2 or 3 years. The Climate Change Commission report is something that's going to happen for the next decades.
Yeah.
So it is absolutely important that we get behind this. So the basic headlines are: we need to do a little bit more than we thought we would need to do. We need to get down to zero carbon by the time we get to 2050, and not just 90% of where we are. So they've set a target for Welsh nation to get down to 90%, Scotland to get down 5 years before, so by 2045, and then England to get down by 2050 to zero carbon. So that means about changing the way we use energy. It doesn't mean about stopping using energy, but it just means about changing the way we use energy and being neutral in what we do, which is exactly what we need to do for this wonderful planet of ours.
Yes. So how does that work out in practice in terms of changing the way, I don't know, we as households, industry, government operate? What sort of things does the report say we should be doing that are different?
Well, that's the interesting thing. The report suggests things that could be done. It doesn't say how we actually do them.
Okay.
So what I would like to suggest to your listeners is actually there's some things we could do now to help contribute towards that reduction to climate change just now. And, you know, there'll be a view that moving away from eating meat, which is quite carbon intensive, to more vegetarian or vegetable options is a good thing.
Yep.
Driving less miles, but also the cheapest energy in the world is the energy we don't use. So actually let's just think about how we use energy in our homes, and actually let's start doing things now. There's lots we can all do, but it needs to be appropriate to the individual and the house they live in.
Yes. So there's been stuff has been said. I think different dates have been offered about when we should be phasing out petrol and diesel cars and going to electric vehicles. Does the report have anything to say about that particularly?
Yeah, the report doesn't go into much about vehicles because government policy is already that we'll be phasing petrol and diesel out. So they've basically said that's going to happen. So by 2050, we will be driving electric or even hydrogen vehicles.
Okay,
and
really?
What comes out the tailpipe of a hydrogen vehicle is water.
Okay.
So isn't that fantastic? But as with everything, we don't have the infrastructure in place, and a lot of people looking at the price of electric vehicles, they are still quite expensive.
Yeah.
It does take probably 8 to 12 years for the cycle of somebody buying a new vehicle to that vehicle becoming second-hand and getting all the way through the supply chain. So it's going to take some time to get to electric vehicles, but we do need to get over this range anxiety of having an electric vehicle and then saying, "Oh, where's the nearest power-up point? I've got to top up before I run out of power."
Yeah.
Because there's petrol stations everywhere. Your sat-nav tells you where the nearest petrol station is. Your sat-nav doesn't yet tell you where the nearest charging point is. And that will change in time as we start to get more and more electric vehicles on the road.
My 2003 petrol-driven vehicle has just done its 101st thousandth mile, and I'm thinking I need to at least get a hybrid. Where are the charge-up points? So that's a very real thing, isn't it? That certainly I'm looking out for them now as I drive around in my petrol Corolla.
And there's more and more out there. You know, any petrol service station you stop at on the motorways, the M62 around us or the M1, you will find a number of chargers there. You'll also find them in some of the supermarket car parks as well. Actually, normally at the front door, which is quite good. So you have exactly the right to drive up to the front door of Asda or Morrison's and park up there and charge your car up while you do the shopping, which is a very sensible place because it might take you 15, 20 minutes to do a small bit of shopping, and you can actually top up your car at the same time. So very, very useful. But there's a lot more we can do in the house as well, even before we go off shopping.
Which is the worst type of meat to eat? And are the meats that we can still eat, which are okay, which are more kind of carbon neutral?
Sheep are probably not as heavy carbon users as cows, but they all have a very big impact. And when you compare it against cereal crops or pulses or vegetables, etc., they all have a much bigger contribution. But the Climate Change Commission report is not saying we stop eating meat. It's saying actually we have to have a more balanced diet, which is good for our health as well. And it's also saying the last thing we need to do is say you can't have meat grown in the UK. What we'll do, we just import it from elsewhere, and that's not actually helping the planet. So doing other things in our homes where we can reduce the amount of energy we use in our homes will stop us producing the power in the first place and will allow us to have that steak maybe once a week rather than every night.
Yes, I'm a vegetarian, Duncan. I need the listeners to hear that. So what about getting about? We've already talked about different forms of power for cars. I suppose we should be looking at bicycles and walking, I suppose, shouldn't we? And public transport.
And I think we have to have a debate at some point in the region and probably nationally about if we invest a lot in roads, would that investment be better put into reducing the cost of public transport, for example? So I, for one, would take public transport everywhere I possibly could if it was free. But actually it's not convenient for me to get to some places I need to be, from the office to home and to meetings, etc. But actually if we can encourage things in a different way, already we're seeing buses which are electric buses. As they stop at bus stops, they are being induction charged, so there's a coil in the road underneath the buses which is charging the battery in the bus. So even if it stops for 2 or 3 minutes, it's increasing its charge. And we're seeing hydrogen buses, so buses driven by gas, biomethane gases or hydrogen gases driving around our towns. Very quiet, very low emissions, so it's not just helping on the climate change front, it's actually helping on the air quality front as well. And we've got lots of dense areas like Leeds or round about Bradford. Wouldn't that be great if we actually got proper transport which stops congesting our lungs as well as congesting roads?
So there's already a lot of stuff happening. These ideas are not completely new, are they? They've been discussed in media and around the place for years. But I guess there's a sense of this report and other people saying that we just need to speed things up. Is that right?
Absolutely. There's a sense of urgency now. We are getting to the point of 400 parts per million of CO2 in the atmosphere, which has never before been there, or certainly not for absolute millennium. We are doing things already which is making a very positive impact. So you may not have noticed, John, but if you've replaced your fridge, your freezer, your TV, or any of the other appliances in your house over the last 5 to 10 years, they've all got AA ratings or AAA ratings or A+ ratings. So we've actually seen energy consumption in households not quite drop, but certainly level out. And that's because the equipment we're buying, the white goods we're buying for our houses, are more energy efficient. Which is absolutely fantastic. We don't need to think about it, but we do need to think about just turning the lights off. We just need to think about not actually leaving the TV on standby overnight or leaving our phones on charge. And all that can help. And even just having a slightly shorter shower. People say, well, that's saving water, it's not saving the climate. Well, yes, it is, because not many of us, and you may challenge me, John, and say I'm wrong, but not many of us like a cold shower. So actually what we do is we use a whole lot of energy, we embed that in the water, and then we stand under a nice long shower, and actually that is using more and more energy. If we could reduce our energy consumption within the UK, within England, within, Butternshire or Little Horton or Clayton, for example, we could save enough, if we did it as a nation, enough to stop building Hinkley and 5 more nuclear power stations. It would save us money, it would help save the climate. And that is something that we need to start thinking about doing now.
Very interesting. We need to wash more quickly, don't we? Wash ourselves more quickly. Cut our hair and have less hair to wash or something.
I challenged my daughter, who's got quite long hair,
Right.
and I said, right, okay, you can have a 5-minute shower, and every minute over that, I dock 50 pence off your pocket money.
That's
And
a bit harsh.
she said she couldn't. Oh, no. It was a challenge for her.
I know,
to be
it's
perfectly
all right.
honest. And she managed to do it.
Yeah.
And now she has 5-minute showers the whole time. It's dropped my energy bill.
Okay.
I'm being a bit more green.
Yeah.
She, as an early 20s-year-old, is actually being nice and green as well. So she's feeling good about something she's actually doing for the planet.
And her hair is no shorter.
Her hair is no shorter.
So-
She's just learned that she turns the shower off
Yeah.
when she's putting the shampoo in and shampooing it through. She
Yeah.
turns it back on to rinse it out. And then once it's rinsed out, she turns it off again, then puts the conditioner in. So it's just the way we do things. We just have to change our behaviours a little bit. It's not about a drop-in lifestyle. It's just about changing our habits a little bit and making a difference to the planet.
Duncan, I've got a confession to make here live on the air and to you, and that is, in my day job, I manage properties, and for various reasons, we like to replace white goods with refurbished white goods, which we buy from charity shops in Leeds, and that's the way we've kind of always done things. But what you're saying, that we think we're being green by doing that, but you're saying perhaps that if we bought more up-to-date new stuff, it's going to be more energy efficient. So is there a stronger green argument for getting new white goods?
There is a balance, and it very much comes down to, John, on the age of what you're buying. It has been manufactured already, so nobody has to go and build you another fridge if you get a second-hand one.
Yeah.
So the shipping of wherever it's coming from doesn't have to happen. But the energy it uses over the rest of its life, which might be 5 or 6 or 7 years, probably counterweighs actually having an up-to-date and more efficient fridge or freezer, for example.
Yeah.
And it's the same for tumble dryers, it's the same for dishwashers. Dishwashers, some of the very efficient dishwashers these days use about a litre and a half of water to do a full 12-place setting. Your dishes come out very clean, but it uses a small amount of water, which means it's only heating a small amount of water.
Yes.
And that efficiency helps reduce the amount of energy that you're using in your home. And with smart meters coming, you're able to see, again, energy, so you can see how much you use.
Yes.
And my youngest daughter and I went round the house once we had a smart meter, turning stuff off just to find out what we thought.
Yes.
We thought we'd switched everything off, and the meter was still telling us we were using energy. So we had great fun going around and trying to find the last things which were left on.
Yes.
And it was the phone under the bed, or the iPad, or the laptop, or something like that, which were left on charging, and we've managed to turn them all off. So.
Yeah. Very interesting. So much to talk about, isn't there, Duncan, with this?
Indeed.
Well, a couple of quick final questions. Is anybody going to take any notice of this report that's come out today? Is industry going to take notice? Is government going to take notice, do you think?
Government are going to take notice because government have a legal duty to take notice.
Okay.
So the Climate Change Commission have something called the Carbon Budget, and they are already, government has got a legal obligation to make sure they get to that. So government will take notice. How that will then transpire will be policies will be changed, and then it will start impacting us. So what we need to do is we need to start making some of the choices ourselves to influence those government policies, so we get what we want from the politicians this time round.
And you've given us some great kind of practical examples of that this afternoon. Finally, you work for Yes Energy Solutions. You're the Chief Executive Officer there. Just tell us what Yes Energy Solutions does.
Yes Energy Solutions, we are on the side of angels. We're a fantastic community interest company.
Sorry.
Because we help people in fuel poverty.
Okay.
We have no shareholders.
Great.
Every pound of profit we do more good work. So we help people who have a decision every day of their life. And I went out to visit one of our customers recently, a lady called Alice, And she had a decision every day: do I heat my house and keep warm during the winter, or do I eat a hot meal?
Yeah.
And we've left Alice now, and she's got both. She can afford
Yeah.
to heat her house, and she can afford to eat. So we are yesenergysolutions.co.uk if you want to look on the website, and we've got a whole lot of energy-saving tips that anybody can adopt on that website.
And you work in Bradford?
We work just south of Halifax, actually.
Okay.
So we're
You're local.
local-ish,
Yep,
but
yep.
not quite in Bradford. But
Okay.
we're in this neck of the woods, certainly.
Yeah, okay. Really good to talk to you, Duncan. Thanks ever so much for your time,
Thank you,
and
John.
we wish you well with your work. It sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye.
Bye for now. That's Duncan McCombie, Chief Executive Officer of Yes Energy Solutions.